a remote region dominated by spiritual darkness, where a tormented and possessed man lives among the tombs, crying out and cutting himself with stones. This man is so dominated by evil that no one can stop him. But then Jesus, the Son of God, arrives, bringing light and hope. The demons that tormented that man, recognizing the supreme power of Jesus, make a surprising and enigmatic request: let us enter the pigs. But what is the hidden reason behind this seemingly bizarre request? Prepare to uncover this passage's mysteries and understand its profound spiritual truth. To fully understand the event we are about to explore, we must first place it in its biblical context. This event is narrated in the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Let's focus on the version described in Mark chapter 5, verses 1 to 20. Jesus and his disciples had just crossed the Sea of Galilee, which was not without incidents. They faced a violent storm that Jesus calmed with a simple command. This already hints at Jesus' power over nature and the elements. Upon reaching the region of the Gadarenes or Gerasenes, depending on the translation, they are immediately confronted with a man possessed by an impure spirit. This man lived among the tombs, isolated and uncontrollable. The description of his condition is distressing. He could not be contained even with chains, as he broke them into pieces, and no one had the strength to subdue him. He spent nights and days among the tombs and on the hills, crying out and cutting himself with stones. The arrival of Jesus marks a crucial point in this story. Seeing Jesus from a distance, the possessed man runs and falls at his feet. Note that even impure spirits recognize Jesus' authority. They cry loudly, "What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I implore you by God not to torment me." Jesus then asks the spirit, "What is your name?" He responds, "My name is Legion, for we are many." This detail is crucial because a Roman legion was composed of 6,000 soldiers, indicating the large number of demons possessing that man. Reading the demon's plea, it is impossible not to be surprised. "If you drive us out, let us go into the pigs." Matthew 8:31. This choice of words is revealing. First, they recognize that Jesus has the power to drive them out. Second, they ask for permission, indicating their submission to Jesus' authority. But why choose the pigs? To answer this, we need to understand the symbolism and cultural context of the time. The demons knew that, when expelled, they needed a new host. The pigs, considered impure by Mosaic law, became an obvious choice. The impurity of pigs was emblematic of Jewish culture. In Leviticus 11:7-8, it is clear that pigs, although having split hooves, do not chew the cud. Therefore, they are impure. Touching or eating pigs was forbidden. Thus, the demons, impure spirits, naturally identified with the pigs. But the demons' request also reveals their desperation. They feared being sent to the abyss, a final prison for evil spirits mentioned in Revelation 23. Asking to enter the pigs was an attempt to avoid this terrible destination, even temporarily. This action also demonstrates that, although powerful and numerous, the demons were completely at the mercy of Jesus' authority. To fully understand the choice of the pigs, we need to delve into Jewish culture and religion. Pigs were considered impure, as mentioned earlier, in Deuteronomy 14:7-8. The Mosaic law strictly prohibited the consumption of pigs. This prohibition was not just a matter of diet, but a symbol of the spiritual purity that God's people were to maintain. Pigs symbolized everything impure and abominable in God's eyes. Thus, by asking to enter the pigs, the demons chose to continue existing in a state of impurity consistent with their corrupt nature. This request was not arbitrary, but deeply symbolic. It represented a deliberate choice for impurity and the continuation of their destructive torment. Additionally, pigs were associated with pagan practices and Gentile cultures that often went against Jewish faith precepts. The herd of pigs grazing near where Jesus met the possessed man indicates that this was a predominantly Gentile area where Jewish dietary laws were not observed. This adds a layer of meaning to the demon's request, as by entering the pigs, they were placing themselves in a culturally impure context, separate from God's chosen people. The Bible offers various descriptions of the nature of demons. They are impure spirits who rebelled against God and were expelled from heaven, along with their leader, Satan. In Isaiah 14:12-15 and Ezekiel 28:12-17, we have symbolic descriptions of Lucifer's fall, the most beautiful of angels, who, in his rebellion against God, became Satan, the adversary. The demons, as followers of Satan, are dedicated to opposing God and his people. In Ephesians 6:1, Paul warns us about the spiritual battle against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world. This event with the demons and the pigs exemplifies this spiritual battle. The demons recognize Jesus' authority and know they cannot resist him. Their plea to enter the pigs shows their acknowledgement of this authority and desire to continue their destructive work. The nature of demons is relentless and evil. They constantly seek a host to torment and destroy. Jesus, on various occasions, casts out demons, demonstrating his power and authority over them. Each exorcism is a victory over evil and a restoration of divine order. The passage of the demons and the pigs is a powerful reminder of the reality of spiritual evil and the supremacy of Jesus. After Jesus allows the demons to enter the pigs, the herd rushes desperately into the sea and drowns. This event causes great commotion among the inhabitants of the region. Instead of being grateful for the liberation of the possessed man, they are terrified and ask Jesus to leave their territory. Mark 5:17. This reaction is quite revealing of the mentality of the inhabitants. First, they were more concerned with the pigs' material loss than with the spiritual and physical restoration of the possessed man. The herd of pigs represented a significant source of economic livelihood for the region's inhabitants. Their loss had an immediate and severe economic impact. This fact shows us how attachment to material possessions can blind people to the divine work and miracles occurring before their eyes. Second, the inhabitants' reaction demonstrates a deep fear of Jesus' power. They recognize he has supernatural power, but instead of seeking to understand and approach him, they prefer he leaves. This fear can be attributed to a lack of understanding and unbelief. Instead of seeing the expulsion of the demons as an act of liberation, they see the loss of the pigs as a calamity. The passage of the demons and the pigs is a clear and powerful demonstration of Jesus' authority over the forces of evil. In other gospel passages, we see Jesus casting out demons and healing the possessed. Still, this event is particularly significant due to the number of demons involved and the visual impact of the pigs running into the sea. Jesus shows that he has absolute power over the demons who cannot resist his authority. This event also points to Jesus' greater mission of defeating evil and bringing salvation. The victory over the demons is a foretaste of the final victory over Satan and his forces on the cross and in the resurrection. This passage reinforces the believer's faith in Christ's authority and the certainty of final victory over evil. The event had a profound impact on the disciples who witnessed this miracle. They saw up close Jesus' power over evil spiritual forces and understood more clearly who he was. This event reinforced their faith and understanding of Jesus' mission. They learned that with Jesus, they had nothing to fear from the forces of evil. This was a crucial lesson for their future mission of spreading the gospel and facing spiritual opposition. Throughout history, different theologians and scholars have interpreted this event in various ways. Some interpretations focus on the literal aspect of the event, while others see deeper symbolism. The Catholic Church, for example, sees this event as proof of Jesus' divinity and his authority over all creatures, including evil spirits. Other interpretations view the event as a lesson on impurity and the need for spiritual purification. The demons going into the pigs symbolize the transfer of impurity and the need to rid oneself of everything impure to be in communion with God. Examining other biblical passages that deal with this theme is essential to deepen our understanding of Jesus' authority over evil. One of the most well-known is the story of the demon-possessed man in Capernaum, described in Mark chapter 1, verses 21 to 28. In this account, Jesus is teaching in the synagogue of Capernaum when a man possessed by an impure spirit interrupts the meeting, shouting, "What do you want with us, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us? I know who you are, the Holy One of God." Jesus rebukes the impure spirit, saying, "Be quiet, come out of him." The impure spirit shook the man violently and came out of him with a shriek. All the people were so amazed that they asked each other, "What is this? A new teaching, and with authority. He even gives orders to impure spirits, and they obey him." This episode underscores Jesus' authority over evil spirits and his ability to free those oppressed by evil. Another significant example is the healing of the demon-possessed boy, found in Mark chapter 9, verses 14 to 29. In this account, a desperate father brings his son to Jesus, explaining that the boy is possessed by a spirit that robs him of speech and often throws him into fire or water to kill him. Jesus' disciples were unable to drive out the spirit. Jesus, seeing the situation, declares, "You unbelieving generation, how long shall I stay with you? How long shall I put up with you? Bring the boy to me." When the boy is brought, the spirit immediately throws him into a convulsion. Jesus asks the boy's father, "How long has he been like this?" The father answers, "From childhood. It has often thrown him into fire or water to kill him. But if you can do anything, take pity on us and help us." Jesus replies, "If you can, everything is possible for one who believes." Immediately the boy's father exclaimed, "I do believe. Help me overcome my unbelief." Jesus rebukes the impure spirit. "You deaf and mute spirit, I command you, come out of him and never enter him again." The spirit shrieked, convulsed him violently, and came out. The boy looked so much like a corpse that many said, "He's dead." But Jesus took him by the hand and lifted him to his feet, and he stood up. This event demonstrates Jesus' authority over impure spirits and the importance of faith in spiritual liberation and healing. The resurrection of Lazarus, described in John chapter 11, verses 1 to 44, also illustrates Jesus' power over death and evil. Lazarus, a dear friend of Jesus, is gravely ill. Jesus, upon hearing of Lazarus' illness, decides to wait 2 days before going to him, declaring, "This sickness will not end in death. No, it is for God's glory, so that God's Son may be glorified through it." When Jesus finally arrives, Lazarus has already been dead for 4 days. Martha, Lazarus' sister, meets Jesus and says, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But I know that God will give you whatever you ask." Jesus says to her, "Your brother will rise again." Martha answers, "I know he will rise again in the resurrection on the last day." Jesus said to her, "I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live, even though they die, and whoever lives by believing in me will never die. Do you believe this?" "Yes, Lord," she replied. "I believe you are the Messiah, the Son of God, who is to come into the world." Jesus then goes to Lazarus' tomb and, deeply moved, orders the stone to be removed. "But Lord," said Martha, "there is a bad odor by this time, for he has been there 4 days." Then Jesus said, "Did I not tell you that if you believe, "You will see the glory of God." So they took away the stone. Then Jesus looked up and said, "Father, thank you for hearing me. I knew that you always hear me, but I said this to benefit the people standing here, that they may believe that you sent me." When he said this, Jesus called loudly, "Lazarus, come out." The dead man came out, his hands and feet wrapped with strips of linen and a cloth around his face. Jesus told them, "Take off the grave clothes and let him go." This miracle demonstrates Jesus' power over death and reinforces his identity as the Son of God and the promised Messiah. The exorcism in Gadara is one of the Gospel's most symbolically rich and theologically significant passages. Found in Matthew chapter 8 verses 28 to 34, Mark chapter 5 verses 1 to 20, and Luke chapter 8 verses 26 to 39. This event highlights not only Jesus' authority over demons, but also the radical transformation he offers to those who are oppressed. Jesus and his disciples had just crossed the Sea of Galilee and arrived in the region of the Gadarenes, where they encountered two demon-possessed men coming from the tombs. These men were so violent that no one could pass that way. Seeing Jesus, they cried, "What do you want with us, Son of God? Have you come here to torture us before the appointed time?" This recognition of Jesus' identity by the demons is significant because it shows they know exactly who he is and the power he possesses. The demons begged Jesus to drive them out and allow them to go into a herd of pigs that was feeding nearby. He said to them, "Go." So they came out and went into the pigs, and the whole herd rushed down the steep bank into the lake and died in the water. Those tending the pigs ran off, went into the town, and reported all this, including what had happened to the demon-possessed men. Then the whole town went out to meet Jesus, and when they saw him, they pleaded with him to leave their region. This event is a clear example of Jesus' transformative power and people's resistance to accepting this transformation, even when it is for their good. In Matthew chapter 12, verses 22 to 29, we find another significant passage illustrating Jesus' authority over demons. In this account, a demon-possessed man who was blind and mute was brought to Jesus, and he healed him so that he could both talk and see. All the people were astonished and said, "Could this be the son of David?" But when the Pharisees heard this, they said, "It is only by Beelzebul, the prince of demons, that this fellow drives out demons." Jesus knew their thoughts and said to them, "Every kingdom divided against itself will be ruined, and every city or household divided against itself will not stand. If Satan drives out Satan, he is divided against himself. How then can his kingdom stand?" Jesus then questions, "And if I drive out demons by Beelzebul, by whom do your people drive them out? So then they will be your judges. But if it is by the Spirit of God that I drive out demons, then the kingdom of God has come upon you." This passage not only demonstrates Jesus' authority over demons, but also exposes the unbelief and resistance of religious leaders in accepting the truth of Jesus' divine power. The temptation of Jesus in the desert, narrated in Matthew chapter 4 verses 1 to 11, Mark chapter 1 verses 12 and 13, and Luke chapter 4 verses 1 to 13, is another crucial passage that highlights Jesus' authority over evil. After being baptized by John the Baptist, Jesus was led by the Spirit into the desert to be tempted by the devil. After fasting for 40 days and 40 nights, he was hungry. The tempter came to him and said, "If you are the Son of God, tell these stones to become bread." Jesus answered, "It is written, man shall not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God." Then the devil took him to the holy city and had him stand on the temple's highest point. "If you are the Son of God," he said, "throw yourself down. For it is written, he will command his angels concerning you, and they will lift you in their hands, so that you will not strike your foot against a stone." Jesus answered him, It is also written, "Do not put the Lord your God to the test." Again, the devil took him to a very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their splendor. "All this I will give you," he said, "if you will bow down and worship me." Jesus said to him, "Away from me, Satan, for it is written, 'Worship the Lord your God and serve him only.'" Then the devil left him, and angels came and attended him. This passage illustrates Jesus' resistance to temptation and affirms his authority over Satan and evil. In Mark chapter 7, verses 31 to 37, we find the story of another miracle of Jesus that demonstrates his authority over demons and evil. In this account, Jesus left the region of Tyre and Sidon, went to the Sea of Galilee, and entered the region of Decapolis. There, a man who was deaf and could hardly talk was brought to him, and the crowd begged Jesus to place his hand on him. Jesus, taking him aside from the crowd, put his fingers into the man's ears. Then he spit and touched the man's tongue. He looked up to heaven and with a deep sigh said to him, "Ephphatha," which means, "Be opened." At this, the man's ears were opened, his tongue was loosened, and he began to speak plainly. Jesus commanded them not to tell anyone, but the more he did so, the more they kept talking about it. People were overwhelmed with amazement. "He has done everything well," they said. "He even makes the deaf hear and the mute speak." This miracle highlights Jesus' authority over people's physical and spiritual condition. The healing of the deaf and mute man is a tangible sign of Jesus' power to completely restore those under the influence of evil. In Luke chapter 13, verses 10 to 17, we find the account of the healing of a woman whose spirit had been crippled for 18 years. Jesus was teaching in one of the synagogues on a Sabbath, and a woman was there who had been crippled by a spirit for 18 years. She was bent over and could not straighten up at all. When Jesus saw her, he called her forward and said, "Woman, you are set free from infirmity." Then he put his hands on her, and immediately she straightened up and praised God. Indignant because Jesus had healed on the Sabbath, the synagogue leader told the people, "There are 6 days for work, so come and be healed on those days, not on the Sabbath." The Lord answered him, "You hypocrites! Doesn't each of you on the Sabbath untie your ox or donkey from the stall and lead it out to give it water? Then should not this woman, a daughter of Abraham, whom Satan has kept bound for 18 long years, be set free on the Sabbath day from what bound her?" This miracle not only demonstrates Jesus' authority over illness caused by evil spirits, but also exposes the hypocrisy of religious leaders who place traditions above compassion and divine liberation. In Luke chapter 9, verses 37 to 43, we find the healing of a boy possessed by an evil spirit. When they came down from the mountain the next day, a large crowd met him. A man in the crowd called out, "Teacher, I beg you to look at my son, for he is my only child. A spirit seizes him, and he suddenly screams. It throws him into convulsions, so that he foams at the mouth. It scarcely ever leaves him, and is destroying him." Jesus replied, "You unbelieving and perverse generation, how long shall I stay with you and put up with you? Bring your son here." Even while the boy was coming, the demon threw him to the ground in a convulsion. But Jesus rebuked the impure spirit, healed the boy, and returned him to his father. And they were all amazed at the greatness of God. The healing of the boy possessed by an evil spirit is a powerful testimony of Jesus' redeeming power and his compassion for those suffering. In Luke chapter 7, verses 11 to 17, we find the account of the resurrection of the widow's son in 9, an event that highlights Jesus' authority over death. Jesus went to a town called Nain, and his disciples and a large crowd followed him. As he approached the town gate, a dead person was being carried out, the only son of his mother, and she was a widow, and a large crowd from the town was with her. When the Lord saw her, His heart went out to her and said, "Don't cry." Then he touched the bier they carried him on, and the bearers stood still. He said, "Young man, I say to you, get up." The dead man sat up and began to talk, and Jesus gave him back to his mother. They were all filled with awe and praised God. "A great prophet has appeared among us," they said. "God has come to help his people." In Mark chapter 5, verses 25 to 34, we find the account of the healing of a woman who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years. This woman had suffered a great deal under the care of many doctors and had spent all she had, yet instead of getting better, she grew worse. When she heard about Jesus, she came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak, thinking, "If I just touch his clothes, I will be healed." Immediately, her bleeding stopped, and she felt in her body that she was freed from her suffering. At once, Jesus realized that power had gone out of him. He turned around in the crowd and asked, "Who touched my clothes?" "You see the people crowding against you," his disciples answered, "and yet you can ask, 'Who touched me?'" But Jesus kept looking around to see who had done it. Then the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell at his feet, and trembling with fear, told him the whole truth. He said to her, "Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be freed from your suffering." In John chapter 9, verses 1 to 7, we find the account of the healing of a man born blind. As he went along, he saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him, "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" "Neither this man nor his parents sinned," said Jesus, "but this happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him. As long as it is day, we must do the works of him who sent me. The night is coming when no one can work. While in the world, I am the world's light." After saying this, he spit on the ground, made some mud with the saliva, and put it on the man's eyes. "Go," he told him, "wash in the pool of Siloam." This word means sent. So the man went and washed and came home seeing. This miracle caused great commotion and debate among the Pharisees, who could not accept that Jesus had performed such a miracle. The healing of the man born blind is a powerful testimony of Jesus' ability to transform lives and manifest the works of God. In John chapter 5, verses 1 to 15, we find the account of the healing of a person with paralysis at the pool of Bethesda. Sometime later, Jesus visited Jerusalem for one of the Jewish festivals. Now there is a pool in Jerusalem near the sheep gate, which in Aramaic is called Bethesda, and is surrounded by 5 covered colonnades. Here, a great number of disabled people used to lie, the blind, the lame, the paralyzed. One who was there had been an invalid for 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and learned that he had been in this condition for a long time, he asked him, "Do you want to get well?" "Sir," the invalid replied, "I have no one to help me into the pool when the water is stirred. While trying to get in, someone else goes down ahead of me." Then Jesus said to him, "Get up, pick up your mat and walk." The man was cured. He picked up his mat and walked. The day this took place was a Sabbath, and so the Jewish leaders said to the man who had been healed, "It is the Sabbath. The law forbids you to carry your mat." But he replied, "The man who made me well said to me, 'Pick up your mat and walk.'" So they asked him, "Who is this fellow who told you to pick it up and walk?" The healed man had no idea who it was, for Jesus had slipped away into the crowd. Later, Jesus found him at the temple and said, "See, you are well again. Stop sinning, or something worse may happen to you." The man went away and told the Jewish leaders that Jesus had made him well. This miracle demonstrates Jesus' authority over illness and challenges the religious traditions that placed rules above compassion and divine healing. In contemporary times, the passage of the demons and the pigs remains relevant. It reminds us of the power of evil in the world and the constant need for spiritual vigilance. At the same time, it assures us that Jesus has supreme authority over all things, including demons. For modern Christians, this passage calls to trust in Jesus' power and seek purification and holiness in their lives. It challenges us to evaluate our priorities and recognize the importance of spiritual transformation over material concerns. Each miracle Jesus performs carries a message of faith, hope, and transformation, which is essential for practicing faith today. First, Jesus' miracles teach us about the importance of faith. On many occasions, healing and liberation were directly linked to the faith of those who sought Jesus. For example, the woman with the issue of blood believed that merely touching Jesus' clothes would be enough for her healing, and her faith was rewarded. Similarly, the centurion who asked for his servant's healing demonstrated extraordinary faith by believing that a simple word from Jesus at a distance would be sufficient. These examples show us that faith is crucial for experiencing God's power. In contemporary Christian life, this challenges us to fully trust God, even in the most difficult situations, believing He has the power to intervene and transform any circumstance. Jesus often had compassion for the crowds, the sick, and the oppressed, and acted to relieve their suffering. This example of compassion should be a model for Christians today. In a world marked by so much pain and need, we are called to be Jesus' hands and feet, demonstrating love and care to those in need. Practicing Christian faith includes a commitment to social justice, charity, and service to others, reflecting Christ's compassionate heart. The miracles highlight God's sovereignty over all things, including nature, disease, evil spirits, and even death. This sovereignty gives us confidence and security in our daily lives. Amid uncertainties and challenges, we can trust that God is in control and that nothing escapes His power and care. This understanding should encourage us to live with courage and hope, knowing that regardless of what we face, God is sovereign and capable of bringing good out of any situation. Additionally, Jesus' miracles challenge human norms and traditions, which can often become obstacles to God's work. Jesus healed on the Sabbath, touched lepers, and ministered to Samaritans, actions against his time's religious and cultural conventions. For Christians today, we must be willing to challenge traditions and norms that are not aligned with God's love and justice. Faith should be dynamic and flexible, focused more on the spirit of the law than the letter of the law, always seeking to reflect Christ's love in all our actions. Jesus' miracles also remind us of the reality of the spiritual world. Battles against evil spirits and the liberation of those possessed by demons show that there is a spiritual dimension that affects the physical world. This means being spiritually vigilant, armed with prayer, God's word, and faith for contemporary Christians. We must recognize that our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against rulers and authorities, as Paul teaches us in Ephesians 6:12. Practicing faith includes constant prayer and dependence on the Holy Spirit to discern and face the forces of evil. Each healing, exorcism, and resurrection is a glimpse of God's kingdom, where there will be no more pain, suffering, or death. This gives us hope and a greater purpose. We live not only for the present, but for eternity. This eschatological perspective should shape our practice of faith, motivating us to live holy lives and share the hope of the gospel with the world. For Christians today, Jesus' miracles call to live a life of active faith, loving service, and constant hope, trusting in God's transformative power in all our lives. We have reached the end of our video, and I hope you like it. If you're looking for inspiration, knowledge, and spiritual connection, don't let this opportunity pass you by. Subscribe to our channel now, leave your like and comment to strengthen our community. And if you want to help us continue sharing religious stories that touch hearts, become a channel member. Together we can make a difference and strengthen our spiritual journey. We're counting on you. We've left the link in the description of this video so you can become a member today. Continue watching videos about the history of the Bible. I will leave 2 recommendations here on the screen. God bless you. We will get to the next video.